Step into the unforgiving world of the Old West, where every second could be your last and survival was never guaranteed. These are the most brutal revolvers ever carried across the frontier. Legendary craftsmanship, staggering firepower, and innovations that made lawmen and outlaws alike respect, or fear, them on sight. Stay tuned, because the last revolver changed the game entirely. Colt Walker. Colt Walker is a legendary .44 caliber percussion revolver, renowned as the most powerful commercially manufactured repeating handgun from 1847 until the .357 Magnum arrived in 1935. The revolver was born from a brutal battlefield requirement. Captain Samuel Walker wanted a sidearm powerful enough to kill a man or a horse with a single shot at distances approaching 100 yards. To fulfill the contract, Colt commissioned Eli Whitney Jr. to manufacture 1,000 revolvers, with an additional 100 produced for private sale. At the heart of the Colt Walker was an enormous 6-shot cylinder engineered to hold a staggering 60-grain charge of FFFG black powder behind a .44 caliber round ball measuring approximately .454 to .457 inches in diameter. That charge was double what later .44 caliber revolvers typically used and triple the load of most handguns of the era. The result was extraordinary performance, with historical muzzle energy estimates ranging from roughly 600 to over 1,000 foot-pounds, territory normally reserved for modern Magnum revolver cartridges. In practical terms, it was a true hand cannon. A 9-inch barrel helped harness that power, delivering long-range capability rarely seen in a handgun of the time. Targets at nearly 100 yards were well within reach, though the intense recoil demanded strength and discipline from the shooter. Fully loaded, the revolver weighed about 4.5 pounds, and that sheer mass was necessary to manage the violent discharge. The Walker's power came with consequences. Metallurgy of the era struggled under such extreme pressures, and fully loaded cylinders occasionally ruptured. Soldiers quickly learned to reduce powder charges to around 50 grains for safer operation. The loading lever also had a tendency to drop under recoil, sometimes locking the cylinder mid-fight, an issue that would later be corrected in the Dragoon series. Even with these flaws, the Colt Walker stood unmatched in raw stopping force. Its reliability, battlefield effectiveness, and overwhelming power reshaped expectations of what a handgun could do. Only 1,100 original units were produced, and fewer than 200 are believed to survive today, cementing its status as one of the rarest and most legendary revolvers of the Old West. Lamat Revolver. Lamat Revolver is one of the most unconventional and intimidating handguns ever carried in the Old West. Built for moments when overwhelming firepower mattered more than simplicity. At its core, it featured a 9-shot revolving cylinder, typically chambered in .42 caliber, giving the shooter 3 extra rounds over standard 6-shot revolvers of the era. The real shock came from beneath the cylinder, a secondary smoothbore barrel chambered in 20 gauge, capable of firing buckshot or a single heavy projectile for devastating close-range stopping power. A pivoting hammer let the user instantly switch between the revolver cylinder and shotgun barrel, transforming the Lamat into a 2-mode combat weapon. Ballistically, the Lamat was no novelty. Typical black powder loads sent the primary revolver barrel's projectiles at about 1,000 feet per second, with roughly 350 foot-pounds of energy, on par with powerful cartridges like .45 Colt or .44 40 Winchester. Modern reproductions confirm that performance, using a 25-grain charge of triple FG black powder and a .451 diameter round ball, highlighting just how formidable the original design truly was. Physically, the Lamat was substantial, weighing close to 3 pounds and measuring over 13 inches in length. That extra mass added stability and authority in hand, even if reloading was slower than simpler revolvers. In high-stakes encounters, the sheer volume of fire and versatility more than justified the trade-off. Production remained limited, with roughly 3,000 units manufactured between 1856 and 1865. That rarity, combined with its radical design, makes surviving examples highly prized today. Colt Dragoon. Colt Dragoon earned its legendary status by correcting the critical flaws of one of the most powerful handguns ever carried into battle. Designed by Samuel Colt in 1848 for the United States Army Regiment of Mounted Rifles, this .44 caliber percussion revolver delivered serious stopping power with unmatched reliability, making it a mainstay during the American Indian Wars and the Civil War, and later one of the most prized. Collector revolvers. The Dragoon was a response to hard lessons from the massive Colt Walker, which suffered from dropped loading levers under recoil and overstressed cylinders when overcharged. Colt fixed both issues by shortening and reinforcing the cylinder to safely handle up to 50 grains of black powder and adding a more secure loading lever latch. With a 140 to 148 grain round ball over a full charge, the Dragoon drove projectiles at roughly 1,000 to 1,100 feet per second, producing an estimated 300 to 450 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, hard-hitting power without sacrificing safety. Production ran from 1848 through 1861, totaling over 19,000 revolvers across 3 models. The first model, built between 1848 and 1850, featured oval cylinder stops and a square back trigger guard, with roughly 7,000 produced. The second model, from 1850 to 1851, introduced rectangular cylinder notches but kept the square back trigger guard, making it the rarest variant at about 2,550 units. The third model, produced from 1851 to 1860, was the most common, identified by its round trigger guard and rectangular cylinder stops. Across all variants, the core design remained consistent. Colt Dragoon was a 6-shot, single-action percussion revolver chambered for a .44 caliber round ball. Standard barrel length measured 7.5 inches, with some third models at 8 inches. Widely used in the California Gold Rush and by the US Army, these revolvers helped transition to self-contained cartridge firearms. Remington New Model Army 1858. Remington Army 1858 is a fortress of reliability forged for the chaos of the Civil War, built for moments when every trigger pull had consequences and failure was not an option. Introduced in 1858, this 6-shot .44 caliber revolver delivered authoritative stopping power with practical battlefield accuracy, confidently reaching out to about 75 yards in real combat conditions. What truly set the Remington apart was its solid frame construction. Unlike open-top revolvers, this rigid design resisted stretching and warping under sustained firing, keeping the cylinder, barrel, and action aligned even after heavy use. That structural strength translated directly into consistency and dependability, especially during prolonged engagements where lesser designs could loosen or lose timing. Power was another defining trait. The .44 caliber chambering allowed shooters to tailor performance based on powder charge, offering flexibility few competitors could match. Depending on the load, muzzle velocity could range from roughly 550 feet per second to well over 1,200 feet per second. With a heavy conical projectile weighing around 220 grains and a full powder charge, muzzle energy could climb to approximately 370 foot-pounds, placing its striking force in the same class as later .45 ACP or heavy .38 special loads. Reloading speed gave the Remington a decisive edge. Its cylinder could be removed and replaced in seconds without tools, allowing soldiers to carry spare cylinders and get back into the fight almost immediately. Safety notches between each chamber prevented accidental discharge if the revolver was dropped, making it safe to carry fully loaded, an invaluable advantage under stress. Weighing about 3 pounds and measuring just over 13 inches in length, the Remington Army 1858 balanced firepower with control, offering steady handling without excessive bulk. With production surpassing 122,000 units, it earned lasting trust during and after the war, a legacy that extended into the 20th century as figures like Buffalo Bill continued to rely on it. Colt Single Action Army. Colt Single Action Army is the iconic 6-shooter that defined the American West, trusted by soldiers, lawmen, and frontiersmen for its unmatched reliability and control. Introduced in 1873, this 6-shot single-action handgun became the trusted companion of soldiers, lawmen, ranchers, and outlaws because it worked every time. under conditions where failure was not an option. Designed by William Mason and Charles Brinkerhoff Richards, it marked the full transition from percussion revolvers to metallic cartridges. Its strong closed-top steel frame and simple single-action operation required the hammer to be manually cocked before each shot, giving the shooter deliberate control and mechanical reliability that older designs could not match. That simplicity is exactly why it earned such deep trust on the frontier. At its core was the .45 Colt cartridge, one of the most powerful handgun loads of the era. The original black powder military load pushed a 250-grain lead bullet with a 40-grain powder charge, producing over 600 foot-pounds of energy and velocities near 1,000 feet per second. That level of performance made the Colt SAA capable of decisively stopping a man or even a horse, which was a serious requirement in 19th century combat and frontier life. Paired with its 6-round cylinder, it offered consistent, authoritative firepower without mechanical complexity. The United States Army officially adopted the Colt single-action army in 1873, and it remains the standard service sidearm until 1892. Its widespread civilian use soon followed, earning it the legendary nickname, the gun that won the West. One of the revolver's greatest strengths was versatility. Beyond .45 Colt, the SAA was offered in numerous calibers, most notably .44-40 Winchester in the Frontier 6-shooter configuration. That option allowed frontiersmen to carry a single ammunition type compatible with Winchester lever-action rifles, a brutally practical advantage when resupply was uncertain and survival depended on simplicity. Rogers and Spencer. Rogers and Spencer Army Model Revolver is a Civil War era handgun defined by precise machining, exceptional strength, and forward-thinking design, arriving just after its historical moment. Built in Utica by Rogers and Spencer, a company that shifted from farm equipment to firearms in 1859, this revolver is widely regarded as one of the most refined percussion handguns of the 19th century. Chambered in .44 caliber percussion, it is a 6-shot single-action revolver built specifically for military use. The 7.5-inch octagonal barrel provides steady balance and reliable accuracy, while fixed sights pair a brass cone front with a rear notch cut directly into the top strap. That solid top strap frame offered superior rigidity and long-term durability compared to open-top designs, reflecting serious military intent. Its quality earned official recognition when the United States government awarded a contract for 5,000 revolvers in November 1864, with deliveries starting in January 1865. Overall production reached roughly 5,800 units between 1863 and 1865. Timing, however, changed everything. Final deliveries were completed in September 1865 after the Civil War had ended, leaving the revolver fully accepted but never issued in combat. Rather than seeing service, all government-accepted revolvers went straight into storage. In 1901, the entire inventory was sold to Francis Bannerman and Son, the legendary military surplus dealer, who later released them to collectors. That uninterrupted path from factory to storage explains why many surviving examples remain unusually well preserved compared to other firearms of the period. Colt 1860 Army. Colt 1860 Army was built for soldiers who needed accuracy, balance, and reliability when the margin for error was thin. Introduced in 1860, this 6-shot .44 caliber percussion revolver delivered controlled battlefield power with a standard military powder charge of about 30 grains of black powder, producing muzzle velocities in the range of 750 to 900 feet per second depending on load and barrel condition. That translated into roughly 230 to 260 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, more than enough for decisive stopping force while remaining far more manageable than earlier heavy-frame revolvers. Samuel Colt engineered the 1860 Army as a refined evolution of his earlier designs, combining the authority of the Dragoon with the lighter, slimmer frame dimensions of the .36 caliber 1851 Navy. This was made possible through a rebated cylinder that stepped down at the rear to fit the smaller frame, paired with an 8-inch round barrel that preserved velocity and accuracy without adding unnecessary weight. The result was a revolver that balanced naturally in the hand and delivered practical accuracy out to about 50 to 75 yards, with skilled shooters able to stretch its reach even farther. The smooth, rounded barrel flowed cleanly into a case-hardened frame, reinforcing strength while keeping the revolver agile. Blued steel components helped resist corrosion in harsh field conditions, while a single-piece walnut grip provided a secure hold and a natural point of aim. Its open-top design reduced overall weight, making it especially popular with cavalrymen and officers who carried it for long hours. In combat service, the Colt 1860 Army proved its worth on an enormous scale. More than 129,000 revolvers were issued to Union forces, with many later captured and reused by Confederate troops, a testament to its effectiveness regardless of uniform. Smith & Wesson Schofield. Smith & Wesson Schofield revolver earned its legendary status in the Old West by delivering lightning-fast reloads that could decide life or death in a gunfight. Built for cavalry practicality, this single-action, top-brake handgun leapfrogged traditional gate-loaded designs. Adopted by the United States Army in 1875, it improved on the Smith & Wesson Model 3, refined by Major George W. Schofield. His frame-mounted latch allowed the revolver to open and reload with one hand, letting a cavalryman control his horse while ejecting spent cases and reloading, something the Colt's single-action army could not match. The top brake system defined the revolver. Pulling the latch let the barrel and cylinder hinge downward, activating a star-shaped extractor that ejected all 6 cartridges at once. This reduced reload time dramatically, giving the Schofield a tactical edge in close-range combat. Chambered in .45 Smith & Wesson, or .45 Schofield, it fired a shorter cartridge than the .45 Colt. With black powder loads, it produced roughly 270 to 300 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, enough stopping power while keeping recoil manageable for fast handling. That cartridge difference created logistical challenges, as longer .45 Colt rounds would not fit, complicating Army supply and contributing to Colt standardization despite the Schofield's advantages. Production ran from 1875 to 1878, totaling about 9,000 units, mostly under military contracts. Many were later sold as surplus and entered civilian hands, often converted with 5-inch barrels for easier carry. In standard military form, it was a 6-shot, single-action revolver with a self-ejecting top brake frame, a 7-inch barrel, roughly 12 3/4 inches overall length, and a weight of about 2.9 pounds. Colt Frontier 6-shooter. Colt Frontier 6-shooter was built for a world where survival depended on logistics and simplicity decided who walked away. Chambered in Fort 440 Winchester, the same cartridge used by lever-action rifles like the Winchester Model 1873, it let riders, lawmen, and settlers carry a single ammunition type for both rifle and sidearm. That advantage cut carried weight, simplified resupply, and removed hesitation in moments where mistakes could be fatal. Introduced by Colt in 1878, this model was a deliberate variation of the Colt's single-action army, engineered around ammunition compatibility rather than tradition. Early examples featured the Frontier 6-shooter name Acid, etched on the left side of the barrel, a marking that transitioned to roll stamping after 1889 and later became a key point of collector and historical value. The revolver operated in single action with a 6-round cylinder, delivering controlled, reliable stopping power with each deliberate trigger pull. A kidney-shaped cartridge extractor sped up spent case removal, reducing reload time when seconds mattered. Finish options included polished nickel and deep blued steel, combining corrosion resistance with unmistakable Old West character. Measuring roughly 12 inches in overall length and weighing just over 3 pounds, it balanced recoil control with practical belt carry, offering stability without excess bulk. Ballistically, the .4440 Winchester proved formidable in a handgun. While slightly lower in energy than .45 Colt, standard black powder loads generated about 360 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, with heavier loads reaching approximately 450 foot-pounds, delivering serious stopping power at practical revolver ranges. Produced in far smaller numbers than the standard Colt Peacemaker, the Frontier 6-shooter remains increasingly scarce, its rarity reinforcing its place as one of the most purposeful and historically significant revolvers of the American frontier. Whitneyville Dragoon. Whitneyville Dragoon sits at a rare and fascinating crossroads in firearms history, bridging the brute force of the Colt Walker with the refined reliability of the Colt Dragoon. Known among collectors as the Transition Walker, this revolver marked the moment when raw power began to meet practical control. Manufactured in late 1847 at Eli Whitney Jr.'s Whitneyville factory, it was assembled using leftover Colt Walker parts blended with newly engineered components, effectively laying the groundwork for the standardized Dragoon series that followed. Chambered in .44 caliber and firing a .454-inch round lead ball, the Whitneyville Dragoon used a shortened, reinforced 6-shot cylinder paired with a 7.5-inch barrel. This redesign reduced the powder charge from the Walker's extreme 60 grains to a safer working range of roughly 22 to 30 grains, dramatically lowering the risk of catastrophic failure while still delivering formidable stopping power. Modern replicas demonstrate just how capable the design was, producing around 150 to 200 foot-pounds of muzzle energy with standard loads, and exceeding 400 foot-pounds when pushed toward historical maximums in stronger, modern steel constructions. One of its most important upgrades was the addition of a secure loading lever latch, preventing the lever from dropping under recoil, a notorious flaw of the Walker. Only 240 units were ever produced, making it one of the rarest Colt-related revolvers in existence. That scarcity, combined with its role as a true evolutionary milestone, has cemented the Whitneyville Dragoon as one of the most respected and historically significant handguns of its era. The Old West may be gone, but the legend of these revolvers still hits hard. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the most brutal handguns ever made, like the video and share it with anyone who loves real firearms history. Subscribe for more no-nonsense breakdowns that cut through the myths, and drop a comment telling me which revolver you think ruled the frontier. The debate over Old West firepower is far from over.